Ready. Hi, Dave. How are you today?
Marilyn, so good to see you.
Nice to see you too. I appreciate you taking the time talking to me about co-living.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm excited to learn from you about wholesaling.
Oh, great. Perfect. All right. For some of our viewers, co-living is kind of a new term, and it wasn't really a term I understood until you and I talked a little bit more about it. Can you speak a little bit about what co-living is in your definition?
Yeah, absolutely. So co-living, it's actually a newer term. It's short for community living, and that's where
Ah,
we rent out the bedrooms. Um, it, and so that allows someone um, to rent a place for a lower cost. They can live in a much nicer place. And that also means that they can typically live much closer to work or school or wherever is really important to them, as
okay.
opposed to having a really long commute, especially in large cities that are population dense. And so
Okay.
now someone can live significantly cheaper than like a one bedroom, one bath.
Okay. And tell me just a little bit about what your configuration, when you say a one bedroom, one bath, does every bedroom have its own bath, basically?
Yeah, great question. So there's actually several different models that are being rolled out and have been rolling out successfully across the country. So the house that we just purchased on September 30th, that was our first co-living house. We
Okay.
actually demoed the entire house all the way to the studs, and then we're building it back as six bedrooms, six bathrooms. And every single
Wow.
bedroom has its own mini split. So the residents that are living in that bedroom, they can control their own temperature.
Wow. That
And then,
seems great.
yeah. And
Does
then we're
that
also,
is your plan to keep people in this space for longer? Because I've heard of co-living models where somebody comes in for a week. What's your plan?
you bet. Yeah, we're looking for long-term tenants. Um, in that house, we are fully furnishing the house. And so that is more of in some markets, that's more of a transitional housing strategy because that person doesn't necessarily have their own bedroom furniture.
Okay.
However, it's also great for long-term housing. And so if someone did have their own furniture, they can put it in storage. But other models that work really well in its market specific, right? And so a market like Phoenix, there may be more people that do not have their own bedroom furniture, so they are looking for a fully furnished place. Or if they're moving from a really hard situation and they just need a new place and they don't have anything. They don't have a vehicle, right? And so for that house, we're actually need to be close to industrial and because we're targeting workforce housing.
Great.
So
Okay. So you said you just purchased this in September. Could you take us through sort of what you did to get it and what you're going through now in your rehab that you mentioned? Any lessons learned and what the process was?
absolutely. So that one, so we purchased it for 235,000. Our remodel is 180,000
Wow, that's a
and
substantial amount.
substantial, right? We're adding 350 feet on the back side, so it's going to be 1,510 square feet, six
Okay.
bedrooms, six bathrooms. It'll have a, a kitchen and like living room, little dining room, common area that everyone shares.
Great.
And then six bedrooms are private with individual private bathrooms for each one. And
Okay.
each bedroom also has a refrigerator, like a mini fridge, freezer, and microwave um,
Oh, in the bedroom. Okay.
in the bedroom. Yeah, like
Okay.
a almost like a college dorm size.
Yep. Okay.
And then we're also attaching a TV to the wall with a wall mount. And that way, the TV is a smart TV. It pulls off the Wi-Fi, and we provide all the utilities, so electric, water, sewer, and Wi-Fi. And so the residents pay a flat amount per month, and that
Okay.
includes everything for the whole house.
Oh, well, that's convenient. Then they know their full extent of the money they have to invest every month. That's great. So you said you're doing this major rehab. Can you talk about some lessons learned for other people who might decide to approach it that way?
Yeah, so if we're going to do an extensive rehab like this, it's really important that we have a really amazing remodeling crew that we can count on and with a flat price for the entire job. They need to pull permits. So everything is above board, especially the project that's this extensive, right? $180,000.
Right, right, right.
And so if we did not have a dependable remodel crew there with a great track record, with the contracts, with everything dialed in, then we would not even think about doing an extensive remodel like that. Instead, we would purchase the house that's more move-in ready, and then um, just add a wall and maybe a bathroom, right? But we're going to do really small stuff just to touch up. It maybe adds a couple additional bedrooms, but we're not going to go through a really, really big, extensive remodel because it's too risky.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is very risky if you don't have an excellent GC with all the people that they need to get it done. Speaking as a GC myself, it's hard to really be able to get things done if you don't have a reliable crew. So great, great. So how one last question I'd like to ask you. If you've got six people who basically are not related living in the same 1,500 square foot house, how do you ensure that people are going to get along, or is it not important to get along because you have really your own living space? How do you do that?
Yeah, setting proper expectations with house rules and really training the residents how to live in an environment where they have roommates again. Some people, it's been a really long time since they had roommates, and maybe they've never lived with other people. And so, learning about the importance of collaboration and how do you resolve conflict. Um, this is the common area, and it's important to do the dishes, and we all need to keep the house clean. When someone brings in the mail, here are the mail slots that they need to go in. Uh,
And how do you train them? Is it like before they sign the contract, they have to agree to all these rules, or how does that work?
yeah, it's part of the move-in process,
Okay.
but they
Okay.
understand that they are moving in right before they sign the contract. Like we'll give them a tour, whether the property manager gives them a tour or that someone in the house will give them a tour.
Okay. All
And
right.
that way they make sure that there's collaboration, that they get along, that there's not different, like significantly different mentalities of how to live in. Uh,
In
does
a
that kind of
shared
make sense?
space. Yeah. 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 Okay. Well, you mentioned one other thing. You mentioned a property manager. How important is it to have a professional property manager, and what are their duties?
Sure. So they find the property, or I'm sorry, they will they'll advertise the property, screen the tenants, and then they check all and make sure and handle any maintenance that comes up along the way. They
Okay.
also handle all the bookkeeping and the accounting work for collecting the rent and um, and then distributions out to the property owners every month. And then if
Okay.
you have to evict or move tenants out and then move tenants back in, as well as any kind of maintenance that needs to be done to refresh the room. With co-living, a lot of people really like the model where we bring in cleaning crews. So this house in Phoenix, we're actually bringing in a cleaning crew every week to clean all the common areas. And that cleaning crew also serves as a weekly inspection of the property.
Ah, okay. So that, but they don't clean bedrooms. They clean only the common areas.
Correct.
Okay.
At that
All right.
house. Some
Okay.
some owners will clean the bedrooms, or they will offer their cleaning crew to clean the bedroom or bedroom and bath, like private bathrooms, for an
Okay.
additional fee.
Oh, that allows people to choose. Are you going to allow that choice for your people if they want that?
I need to check with our property manager.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, that's good. What typically does that model that you use take off the top in terms of your rents? What is that?
Yeah, the property
5%, 10%, 15%?
Yeah, the property in Phoenix, our property manager charges 22%, and that includes the cleaning crew and the software, the distributions, and all those things. Um, Other property managers can charge 16% is what I'm seeing from several other property managers across the country.
I see.
And then companies like Pad Split, they are currently charging 8%. They just moved from 12 to 8, but they're really handling the technology in the back end process, this the recruiting and advertising to fill the property, but then anything else between when the tenant moves in to when the tenant moves out needs to be handled by a local property manager. And so that local property manager, if they charge 8 or 10% for that part, then you're still at 18 to 22% kind of a
I
range.
see. Okay, great. Well, are there any other lessons learned? I mean, I realize you're new into this. Are there any other things that you want to share with people, that questions I didn't ask you?
I think the big thing with co-living is it's a huge win for everybody. The residents get to move in and they get a place that's nicer, and they also would typically pay significantly less than having their own one bedroom, one bath. There's also big advantages for living with other people. So there's less loneliness, there's less depression, less anxiety, and they actually get to meaningfully contribute on a day-to-day basis to their own house community. And that also increases the likelihood that they're also going to go outside their own house and serve and volunteer and help make life better for other people.
Okay.
The
All right.
community in the city wins because you're effectively taking a single family house and using it for multifamily, so you can increase the housing capacity and the housing supply without actually adding additional buildings. And so that allows your city to store and house more people without building more buildings. And then the investor wins because we're able to. So at the house in Phoenix, we're getting $1,213 per room per month,
Hmm. Times
as
six. That's
opposed
good.
times six, right? That's $7,200 in
Yeah.
rent.
Yeah.
And after mortgage, including principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, maintenance, property management fees, expected vacancy, we're still at $20,000 a year in net positive cash flow.
Okay. All
Where
right.
else can you get cash flow like that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so by doing co-living, it's a situation where everybody wins. It's win, 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 win.
Great. Great. Okay. And just so last thing, a little bit about your background. Prior to getting involved with co-living and real estate, what were you doing?
So over the last 5 years, the last 4 years, I also worked a W-2 job. And so this was a side hustle. And so we've done those first 4 years, we did 14 properties, 4 flips, 10 long-term rentals, all with a value-added component where we bought it low and then we remodeled it and then we would refinance it using the BRRRR method.
Okay.
Um,
So you're not new to real estate. You're just new to this part of real estate called co-living.
that's correct.
Okay, great.
And
Well,
we've used investor money, and we've helped them get an above average return. and they
Right.
can invest in real estate and get all the advantages like tax deductions and the property appreciation, loan pay down, as well as the cash flow from that actual property.
Great. Great.
And so we've
Okay. Well,
done,
any other parting words of wisdom you want to leave us with?
now, if you are interested in reaching in either investing in co-living, in sharing best practices and learning much more, reach out. And I choose not to operate like this, but instead we operate like this.
Great.
So it's
Great.
all about collaboration over competition.
Okay. Why don't you give everybody your contact information so they can get a hold of you if they want to do that?
Absolutely. So my phone number is 828-308-8727. And my email you can reach out to is David at Bolt, BOLT, properties with an IES, LLC.com. And I look forward to
Great.
hearing from you and love to help new investors or experienced investors learn much more about co-living.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thanks so much. So Marilyn, I'd like to ask you some questions as well to learn about wholesaling. So can you give us a little bit of your background?
Sure, sure. Thanks for having me. So I was in high tech. I work for a company called IBM. Some
Mhm.
people will know it, some people won't. But I did that for many years in sales and in consulting. And the reason I say that is because everybody should look at the background that they have and take some skills from other things they've done to be able to apply it into real estate. And I found that to be very, very true.
Mhm.
So when I left high tech about a little over 10 years ago, I decided to pursue my passion, and I've always been pretty handy. So I became a builder. So I've done several rehabs. I've done several new builds. I've done several sort of take everything down except the foundation, and then couldn't take the foundation down because I had problems with getting permits from the city if I took the foundation down. So I've done a combination of things for maybe since about 2013, and then about 3 years ago, I decided to add another path, income generating path called wholesaling. And I I joined a group called Astro Flipping with the king of wholesaling, Jamil Damji, and he's become a very good friend. And I've learned a whole new set of processes for wholesaling. And just to define wholesaling just a little bit for people, it's where I would get a property directly from the seller. They don't put it on MLS. I might be working in a joint venture agreement with other wholesalers who got the property under contract, and we'd sell it directly. But it saves the seller all the commission fees, etc., that they would be paying for a realtor. And we typically close very quickly, usually within a matter of weeks or a month or so, and we close for cash. So it's a minimal kind of experience for the seller in terms of hassle. They get to sell their property very quickly. They do not have to do anything. So often, when you get a realtor involved, the realtor say, "Well, you really should, take out your furniture, have the house staged, maybe paint this room, prepare this kitchen so it can be in showcase style. Never have a dish that you have to put away." So wholesaling offers to the seller a lot of advantages, not only quick closing, but the advantages of not having to invest anything in their property. And it's been going very well, and I have some very happy people who've said, "Boy, I didn't even know such a thing existed." So it's been great. Some of the wholesale properties that I get, I look at essentially flipping myself. Actually, I look at every wholesale property that either I get or that I get from another wholesaler
Mhm.
to that comes across my desk. I look at it to see if it's something I want to do myself. Now, I tend to focus in the Northeast. I'm in everywhere in Massachusetts. I'm in everywhere in Rhode Island, and I'm in Southern New Hampshire. Doesn't mean that wholesaling can't be done long distance. It absolutely can. But I've been so busy doing it where I'm doing it now, I haven't really expanded to do it what they call virtually. And a lot of people do just virtual kinds of things now. So I ended up using my building experience every time I go into a rehab myself, and I can help my buyers because of my building experience understand things like budgets. I might even help them find a good electrician or something like that. So I'm really a little bit different wholesaler than I've seen a lot of people on the internet be.
So you really go into, so let's say someone is interested in selling their house, and
Mm-hmm.
you can go in and you would be a great resource for them to help weigh out the pros and cons of either selling it on the MLS, and here's what you're going to go through if you do it that way. And you're going to have the house show ready, and a lot of times you're also going to have to um oh, it looks like we lost Marilyn. All right, well, while she's trying to get back in, a lot of people, when they go to sell their house on MLS, they have to do a bunch of repairs. They have to fix things up and make it really move-in ready. And if that seller does not have all the money available in order to do thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of rehab, it can make a whole lot of sense to sell it to a wholesaler at a discount if they're going to take on that burden, and they're going to not have the inconvenience of having to show it, and then that property falls out of contract, and then they have to relist it, or then they have to put it under contract again. So that makes all the sense in the world. If, like, for 10 or 15% of the sellers, or if the house is a hoarder house, or they just have a ton of stuff, or their house is in disrepair and they need a lot, and there's just a lot of issues with the house. So Mary,
Correct.
yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, and I have often done both ways. If I have a seller I'm talking to, I will just tell them, look, you're better off selling it on the MLS market. You'll get for money, but just be prepared that it's going to have these costs associated. And one of the costs people don't recognize is that when you usually sell it to a retail buyer, it takes banks anywhere between 2 and 3 months to close. That's typical. So while that's happening, the seller is still paying for insurance. They're paying to maintain the house. They're paying for the utilities, et cetera, et cetera. So it essentially across the country, when you sell your house in a retail standpoint, from a retail standpoint, regardless of what you would have to pay to in commissions, it costs you anywhere between 8 and 10% of the selling price when you sell at retail. And a lot of people don't understand that they're going to essentially lose that money. So it's a wholesaling allows a seller just another option in terms of selling their properties.
So when you say 8 to 10%, what is included in that? It must be more than just realtor commissions, because a lot of times that's six, right?
Yes, that's 5 or 6, depending upon where you are. But when you take a look at your fees, that the insurance you're paying, the any of the maintenance fees that it might cost you to keep the house up, you might be paying staging fees. There's a lot in there that people don't necessarily understand. They have to take a look at in terms of being able to sell their house. And so on average, that 8 to 10%, yes, a big chunk of it is the commission, but it's all these extra fees that people say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I'd be paying all those fees while you're waiting for the bank to close.
Right. Plus the closing attorney or the title and escrow company that's actually going to close it. if there's any additional surveys, or a lot of times the
Correct.
buyers will ask for certain things to be fixed
Uh,
before they move in, like it's contingent upon the sale.
yes, they may ask for them to be fixed, or they may say decrease your cost, and you do not have that in wholesale. Now, there are a couple of different ways to do this. I believe the right way to wholesale a property is that the seller will essentially pay their fees. So they'll pay their, and they're small usually as a seller. They pay, and it depends obviously what state you're in, but they would pay for their attorney, the buyer would pay for their own attorney. So you want, in Massachusetts, it's one of these states that requires attorneys to close. There are only about 6 of them across the United States that require attorneys to close. Most states will allow just a title company to close. So you look at it in terms of, the seller paying their related selling fees and the buyer paying their related fees. And usually I find that that's the best way to run one of these wholesale deals.
Wonderful. Any other tips and tricks that you want to share?
Well, I think that wholesaling needs to be a very ethical business. A lot of people look at it and they aren't trained in how to do it correctly. They're not doing it honestly. They're looking to lowball the seller. In my case, I spent a lot of time properly getting to the after repair value in terms of a home. And because of my background in terms of being a builder, I can also take a look at what it's going to take from the now to get to the future after repair value, and understand and explain to the seller what those costs are. Sometimes sellers take a look at what's on Zillow. They look at the Zestimate and say, "Oh, my house is worth that," and worth that. And what they don't realize is, no, your house might not be worth that because it needs 50, 60, $100,000 worth of repairs and fixes. Zillow does not take into account when they do these estimates that your house hasn't been updated since 1974. I've just bought a house and I'm updating it myself, rehabbing it myself. And literally, the woman kept the house up to snuff, sort of like when she had a roof leak, she didn't replace the roof. So it's a roof that was installed in 1974, although she did do patches on the roof. She's never updated the heating system, and it doesn't have air conditioning, and a lot of people like that these days. So you really have to take a look at um, what the cost is. There could be major costs in terms of a roof I mentioned, replacing windows. In my area of the country, there's lots of septics. To replace those are anywhere between $25,000 and $45,000. So you have to look at all the costs that it takes to bring a house up to the after repair value, be able to sell it in terms of to the buyers, in terms of understanding that. So I think that it's important for sellers to understand and deal with ethical wholesalers that know what they're doing, can explain how they came to the price that they came to, and then still give them all the advantages of selling for cash, quick closing, et cetera, et cetera.
Marilyn, this has been a wealth of information. Thank you so much for sharing so much with us.
Well, thank
You,
you for talking to me. I appreciate it.
yeah, would you share how people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Sure. I have an email. It's my name, Marilyn, Marilyn. Then there's an E, and my last name is Savage, SAV as in Victor, AGE, at gmail.com. So my email is Marilyn E. Savage at gmail.com. And my number is 781-775-7882. That'll get me directly on my cell.
Wonderful. And do you have any social media that people should
I
look
have to
for?
admit that I am just starting on social media. This will be one of my first posts, but I have opened a YouTube platform under my name. And I did just sign up for Instagram. I haven't posted anything to either one of them yet, but I will be starting to do that.
Wonderful. And my social media is real, REAL, Deal David Ross, and that's on Instagram and YouTube. And then
Great.
I also have a Facebook. You can find me under David Ross.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I have a Facebook posting to my name, Marilyn E. Savage. So I usually post on that Facebook page my houses for sale. And those are wholesale houses for sale, not my rehab ones. So, okay.
Wonderful.
Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.